Make some noise. Hadithi.
Good evening. This is called Intsimbi Yandiphilisa. It's a self-portrait, as I said, and it's a piece that is entirely woven using traditional glass beads, Xhosa beads, something my grandmother taught me. And I'm a weaver as an artist. I weave different stories from the past, the present, and the future to make sense of who we are and myself in the greater scheme of things. So on the 4th of July 2017, I'm going to weave a series of stories that seem completely separate, but they're all interconnected and they will come back down to this. So on the 4th of July 2017, I was merrily on my way to watch Mary J. Blige perform, and in Philadelphia, I'm in the US. It's a nice time. It's a big celebration around the country. And I'm obviously very happy, and I don't mean happy as in happy, I mean happy as in happy. You know, because I'm going to see Mary J. Blige. And as I make my way out of the subway, I'm all on my own in a foreign country, and a group of African-American boys group around me and they start hurling homophobic insults at me. I'm all alone in a foreign country, and this is happening on the 4th of July, the birthday of the country. I'm a foreign citizen. I'm being called faggot and all these kinds of things. This is the first time this is happening in my life. Very traumatic experience. So I talk about it to my colleagues and my peers in the classroom. I was part of a fellowship program. And I share the story with them because they're all from different parts of the African continent. And some of them, they'd never met a gay man before. And I share the story with them. And as I'm weeping, I finish the story and I leave the podium. And as I leave the podium, my one friend from Botswana, Salim Gilebohile, stops me in front of the auditorium. He stops me and he says, "Bongani, I see you for the first time." And he cries in my arms. He hugs me and he cries in front of everyone, a room full of people. And he openly admits to being homophobic before that moment, before that very moment when he saw me. So this is why I'm seated, so that you can see me. Fast forward, come back from the US, about a year later, the movie's making rounds. I watched the movie at home for the first time with my brother, with my little brother. He's right there. Tule, yeah, he's right there with his girlfriend. So cute. And after the movie, he looks at me and he says, "Bhuti, they just wanted to love each other. Why is everyone so angry about this movie?" He doesn't know that I tell this story. I tell the story to a lot of people. They just wanted to love each other, Bhuti. Why are they so angry? Why is there so much protest around this movie? And that was important for me, that a heterosexual Xhosa man, he's my brother, understood that two men can love each other. And he had that moment in his head, that realization. That was important for me. That was 2018, I think. And so couple of months down the line, the movie creates a lot of protest, violent protest in Port Elizabeth, where we are. And for the second time in my life, I'm scared because of my sexuality again. Going back a year again, I haven't felt it again since I was in America a year ago. And I feel it again in my own house. I'm scared to leave because I'm a queer man, you know, and people are kicking down dustbins about a movie. What will they do if they're confronted with a gay Xhosa man in the street, you know? And that fear sat with me for a couple of days. When it was blasted all over the media, across the country, that in Port Elizabeth, where this movie was made in the province, it is not allowed to be seen. It is banned. That moved me in ways that I'd never thought of before. Culturally, within the family space, within the community. It was a poignant moment that I meditated on for a very long time. A couple of months down the line, in September, around this time of the year, in 2018, I get a call from my friend, Kanyisile Mbongwa, who is a curator for performance art at the Noval Foundation in Cape Town. And she says to me, she asks me, Bongani, I'd like you to think about something for a while, for a show that I'm curating in 2019. I'd like you to think about what it means for you to be a black, queer, creative South African man. And I'd like you to respond to this question however you want. Whew, okay. Sat for months and months thinking about this idea of what it means for me as a Xhosa man who is queer, who's creative, who's living in South Africa, and all of these things. And then in February of this year, I decided to stage a response to Kanyisile's question. And in my response, I did everything that Xhosa men are not supposed to do. I put on a pair of high heels. I exposed my legs. Put on a G-string and a tutu, a ballerina's dress. And I bought myself a whole bunch of pink balloons for playfulness and frivolity, because African men can't be playful. They can't reveal their legs in public. And I walked down the street like this, down Stanley Street, while people were having their dinners at the restaurants. And I engaged with them. It was a jarring moment for everyone, because Xhosa men are not allowed to be doing these things. But what I was in actual fact doing was telling people that men can express their masculinity in different ways, and femininity is not something that should be isolated as a separate entity. It lives within us. We come from our mothers. Masculinity and femininity cannot be separated. They live within all of us, and we all express them differently from time and space, depending on who we are. And we all perform masculinity every single day when we get up, because we have to prove to the world that we are masculine, that we are men. It is a performance. Each and every single man around the world makes a performance of masculinity. I was performing a very different sense of masculinity and femininity that exists within this body, and I channeled it through. The performance it drew some unprecedented national media. You can follow it through the hashtag Abafana Bafana. I performed it successfully. It was an experiment for me. The intention through my conversation with Kanyisile was always to perform the work at the Noval Foundation in Cape Town later in May. So I traveled. So after the performance in Port Elizabeth, I started working on a self-portrait. It just felt natural. And I started weaving because that is what my grandmother had taught me. A traditionally female-only practice in our culture. My grandmother decided to teach her grandson this very feminine thing. I don't know why. And so through the self-portrait, I carry parts of herself through it. And so she's imbued in here because she's a part of me. She lives within me, essentially. And she shall continue to live long after she passes because she's made sure of that. And that's what I'm trying to say. But I don't mention her identity because in Xhosa culture, one precedes their introduction with their clan names. And these clan names are all of a patriarchal system. What sets the precedence in all Xhosa people, male and female, and otherwise, is patriarchy. It comes first. When you introduce yourself in a room full of strangers as a Xhosa person, you start with your clan names. You start with the names of your grandfathers and your father and everybody on your father's side of the ancestry. But through my investigations, I found that many African cultures have in fact embraced homosexuality for centuries, long before colonialism. That was also quite interesting for me, how colonialism has influenced the way we read ourselves and how we understand masculinity. And that was my intention my reason for putting on high heels. Because clothing in Xhosa masculinity in particular, clothing is a very important aspect of how we communicate, you know. And so I wanted to flip that on its head. And I continue to flip it in different ways through drawing and sculpture. I'm working on a new piece upstairs. You're welcome to come and see it. That's a part of this growing body of work. So I'm a weaver. I weave different stories of our past and our present. And for me, it saddens me that we've become so lost in the present moment that we don't understand where we come from as Xhosa people. Because if you excavate Xhosa culture and its history, there are many homosexual practices within our culture that have long died because of colonialism, that we don't know about and we don't even practice anymore. And I'm uncovering these things slowly, and I'm continuing to tell the story. And I hope you will follow this journey with me. And to help to re-educate our people. You know, we've not been... It seems for me very strange that post-colonialism has separated the LGBTQI community from the straights. But African culture doesn't do that. And things have become very distorted of how we understand ourselves, you know? And so violence is an after effect of that, of how we don't understand ourselves and of our history, and of how two Xhosa men can love each other and how that's okay, you know? So I continue to resist the protest around Inxeba. It's scary sometimes because I have to put my own physical body in public space and anything can happen. Anybody might respond in a way that, you know, they don't like it. If they don't like it, they're going to do something physically harmful to me. But that fear is something I suppose I live on. Because I have to, you know. Otherwise I wouldn't be brave enough to be making the work that I'm making. It takes a lot to be staging these kinds of performances where I have to unclothe myself in public space and do the things that I've been told not to do in public space. Because it ostracizes me from my community too. Because when I come back from Port Elizabeth having performed this work, my straight friends sometimes don't shake my hands anymore. They think I don't know, you know. By telling this story, it's for them quite offensive because, you know, I'm challenging masculinity quite directly. But it needs to be challenged because it's an ugly monster. It's the reason for the physical violence against women in society in South Africa, which is a very ugly curse that we have as South Africans. So masculinity has to be challenged, unfortunately. Thank you for listening. I just wanted to share that.